sono 4.
Ah, okay. Amen. So, good morning. My name is Alessandro Lucchetti. I'm a researcher from the CNR, National Research Council. I'm specialized in fishing technology and protected species conservation, basically. So today I'm gonna split my presentation in two sections. The first one is about the protected species and means to avoid bycatch. And the second one, I just thought about that yesterday. So since you have, can you hear me well?
Yeah.
Since you have a quite different, let's say, background, different skills, etc. Yesterday I thought, what can I do to make something interesting for everybody? I mean, because some of you probably don't know fishing, some of you don't know fishing practices, etc. Therefore, the second part of my presentation will be about the project design. I mean, I create a kind of storyboard where the first part I will describe projects and how to, let's say, which kind of activity we do in our research activity. And the second part is a follow-up of this and how to create a project from this type of activity. But so I bet you can get some information from the second part that can be useful also for you, because I think that you are now researchers with a strong background, and probably your next step will be try to apply for a project. And okay, but so dealing with the second part, I would say I put everything together, so probably it will be a mess, but I don't want to explain this part as an expert of project design, but with a view of a researcher when you prepare a project proposal, I mean. Therefore, I will give you some tips and practical tips, I think. So the first part is about the mitigation measures and endangered species and so on. So first of all, the main questions are, what is the bycatch? How to assess the bycatch by groups, bycatch estimates, how to mitigate the bycatch, etc. So first of all, vulnerable species. This is a tricky point because, so in theory or in general terms, a vulnerable species is a species that faces a high risk of extinction in the medium period. To formalize this, there are several different conventions. The most famous one is the Barcelona Convention, but the other one is the UCN. Here you can find the red list that categorize the level of protection of each species, endangered, critically endangered, vulnerable, etc., etc. Yes, some species can be vulnerable just because they live in a poor habitat. So a species can be protected or can have a different, let's say, categorization between the less dangerous, I mean endangered, until protected, according to different criteria. If you go there in the website of the UCL, you can find everything. There are, let's say, tables where you can find how they assign this specific category. But to be honest, sometimes let's say the assessment is quite old for certain species. And you can find, let's say, some species that you believe strongly protected, instead they are, let's say, categorized as vulnerable in this list. So you have to take this red list with caution. So that's really. But why the species should be protected? Probably you heard about that several times, but because there are scientific, ecological, cultural, economic value in this species. We are not speaking just about dolphin, turtles, and so on, but also Posidonia, because Posidonia is important because all the story that you know, they protect the environment, they enrich the environment, and so on. They are protected, several species, because they are key strategies species. Therefore, I put here some details of some key species. If you imagine the caretta, the loggerhead turtle, you have only a few eggs, only few of them reach the adult stage. They reach the maturity in more than 20 years, usually at a big size. Therefore, when a species has a big size, can be vulnerable to fishing activities. Or if you consider let's say this species, now speaking about sharks is quite funny and let's say sexy. But so to be honest, when you speak about the white shark here in Mediterranean, you can just have, let's say, sightings. Therefore, you cannot speak about a resident population as someone. I just read a paper from Alessandro from Croatia that report how this famous LEC research, local ecological knowledge research based on, let's say, pictures from tourists, etc. Sometimes the pictures reported we found the white shark, etc., but going in detail, that was not a white shark. So you have to take the information that you find in this type of research with care, I mean. Also in this case, you can see for this species, late maturity, big size, only so low maturity, and so you know the story. Okay, this is just to say why they are protected. The same story for the bottlenose dolphin. Only a few pups and late maturity, big size. So they are protected for this. Another way, because they are protected, is their role in the ecosystem. So think about the Posidonia, let's say, but also for the high predators, such as the ones that I showed you before. They works for the food web regulation, connectivity between habitats. So they are top-down control. I don't want to spend too much time on this because we have several things to speak about. The ecosystem services, again, some species are important because they enrich the ecosystem, and then indirectly also they enrich the human, because they have a cultural value, scientific, educational, they provide shelter for other species. We need to protect some certain species because they face several human pressures, because some of them are at risk of extinction, and also because some species are indicators of the good environmental status. That's why they enter the Marine Strategy Framework Directive. But I'm really surprised about that because when I started working with this, I usually thought about, so we cannot protect the dolphins just because they are seen to smile, okay? We have to protect the dolphin because they represent a risk for the humans. I mean, that was my idea. But after a few years working on that, I realized that probably it is not so strange protecting dolphins because they are funny or because they are smiling. Because I saw also several different situation, not only in Italy, but all around the world, where they are also, let's say, an economic value. If you can imagine the dolphin watching activity and so on, there are entire communities working on this. Therefore, yes, probably we can protect not only for because they represent a problem for us, but also because they are funny. Also ethics. You can see here an imaging of this is a long line catching a sea turtle. So why we need to make this to this species? And to be honest, the number of people interested in this specific ethical issue is really high. Therefore, we need to protect also for this. So what is bycatch? In general, there are several different, let's say, definitions of bycatch. I usually use this of the General Fishery Commission for the Mediterranean, which is the bycatch is the unintentional catch, which is not the target of a specific fishery. In Italy, it's quite strange to speak about that, because if you think we don't have so much fisheries that target just one or a few species. We have the, let's say, the volante, the petrel, the pelagic petrel. They usually target anchovies and sardines, let's say. We have the hydraulic dredges. They catch clams, and in some areas the razor clam, Canolichium. We have some specific long lines that target swordfish and some other bluefin tuna, but in general, in Italy we have a multi-specific fishery. But the bycatch is, let's say, that part of catch which is not a target, but the bycatch can be also composed by other commercial species, other non-commercial species, because we have species that they don't have any commercial interest. They are simply discarded. And within the bycatch, we also have the vulnerable species. Therefore, vulnerable species is a bycatch. This is a video for babies, but imagine that you tow a net on the land instead of on the sea. Imagine this like a bottom troll. You can catch Posidonia, but also other species. Some of them, such as this one, they don't have any commercial interest. Some other, like this, the pigs, they have a commercial interest. And this type of net, such as the bottom troll, catch almost everything. Once you have hold the catch, you hold all the catch on board, and you retain the big commercial species. You discard the small species, and you discard also the non-commercial species. Okay, quite stupid, but quite clear. This is, for instance, a bycatch of turtles in bottom trawling here in the Adriatic, not so far from here, really. No, probably fun, yes, or not so far from here. You can see that the target species here were the Squilla mantis. In some period, they target these species. But as you can see here, we had also 4 turtles in 1 hour of tow. This is here in the Adriatic, in just before winter, let's say. So for the long line, we have other types of bycatch. Long lines is a fishing gear using hooks. Here you can see the classical bycatch, the Prionace glauca, and also sea turtles. Therefore, the target species is the swordfish, and you have also other, let's say, bycatch of other commercial species, because the target species is the swordfish, but other type of bycatch are sharks, sea turtles, and sometimes also seabirds. If you go in some area of Italy, let's say Lampedusa, they have a quite, let's say, local problem with seabirds. Therefore, the commercial fisheries is one of the main cause of human related mortality and injuries for vulnerable species. I don't remember if I had another slide on this, but so remember that sometimes protected or vulnerable is something, let's say, just on the paper. I would say that if you consider the Barcelona Convention, if you have a species there, unless there is a formal national act, such as a national decree or a legislation that put that species in the protection in that specific country, the species is protected just in theory. You have to have a formal legislative act from the member states, from the country. So dealing with the bycatch, the bycatch with the different is affected is different in different fishing years, troll net, passive nets, long lines, etc. It also depends and differ among area, depth, the gear properties. Consider, for instance, let's say a passive net, the mesh size, the net height, the net length also. If you consider the bottom troll, the bycatch can change also according to the towing speed of that gear and also season, because the species has a different distribution. Some species, at least, has a different distribution according to the season. So the bycatch, so vulnerable species, is a growing concern for conservation reasons, for scientists, but it is also a matter for fishing industries. One of the main problems when you are facing the bycatch is that, at least in the past, now something has changed, is that you only consider the direct mortality. Let's say you put a long line, you recover a long line, there is a turtle die, and then you consider this mortality. Sometimes, especially in bottom trawling, you can catch the turtle, you retrieve the gear, the turtle is still alive, and sometimes it's really, let's say, funny because they move quite, let's say, quite fast. Therefore, you think she's good, and you throw back to sea. But sometimes we realize that this type of turtles are in a comatose state. They move quite fast because they are not in a good shape, let's say, due to gas embolism, basically. And therefore, we didn't consider until now what is the delayed mortality. So you catch a turtle, you release, you think in good condition, but this animal can die in, let's say, 1 week or a few hours. The gaps in knowledge. This is a key point. I mean, in the last few weeks, just to let you know, we are working to face an infringement procedure from the EU Commission to Italy and other member states, mainly for the gaps of knowledge on the bycatch. I mean, they say Italy didn't make. Yes, this is the sense of this infringement procedure. But there are some reasons. But the gaps until now are the qualitative and the quantitative information. I would say also qualitative because sometimes we have, especially for sharks, a wrong species definition. Sometimes the operator on board doesn't recognize the species, therefore they reported the wrong species in the document. Sometimes, especially in Mediterranean, between different countries, there is not a standard for monitoring. This is a key issue I just want to make you an example. There are some NGOs that usually collect data, let's say, on the seabirds that they found stranded on the beach. And they say, oh, there is a big problem because we saw these seabirds with the net in the mouth, therefore for sure they die for fishing activity. The problem with this type of data is that they are not standardized and they only consider let's say, the positive case. I mean, they can overestimate the bycatch problem because they consider only the positive case, the seabirds that die stranded on the beach. And the same it was for, because if you consider here in the Mediterranean, we have 23 countries probably, or something like that. If you don't have a standard protocol for the data collection, is a mess because the data are not comparable. In the last few years, the GFCM has delivered a standard protocol for this, and probably in the next years, the situation will improve. The other problem is there are several databases. If you can, let's say, consider little NGOs, etc. Every single NGO has its own database. And they don't put everything together. Therefore, there is a loss of money because they can get money to make their activity, but they don't put their data in a national database. Therefore, there is a waste of data. And if you don't have the real knowledge of species, areas, gear, etc., obviously you have a problem with the management also. But going in detail with the different fishing gears, this is a bottom troll. I don't know how many of you are working on fishery. Raise your hands. Not so much. How many of you are familiar with fisheries or? Okay, let's say 50%, more or less, a little bit more. Okay, but this is a general scheme of the bottom troll. I don't want to waste so much time on this, but it's, let's say, it is the most important fishing gear in Italy and in the world because they catch the biggest amount of commercial species. Just to give you some dimensions, from the wings to the caudal, in Italy, more or less, we have a length of about 30, 70 meters from the smallest to the biggest vessels. Okay, this is a typical catch of a bottom trawling. As you can see, everything is mixed here. You also understand the multi-specificity of this fishery. We don't have a single target species here. You have several different commercial species, from hake, red mullet. In this case, probably there are some Norway lobsters. Okay, after this, they have the sorting. They divide the catch for the different species. And this is the discard. What remains at the end of the sorting procedures? Everything is almost died, and all this part is thrown to sea. So everything is died, and if some species can be alive, probably here they finish their life. So inside the caudal that you can see here, everything is alive. They can swim. Therefore, if you put some technical solution here in the caudal or just before the caudal, you can save the smaller specimens, but also you can save, let's say, vulnerable species if you use the proper bycatch reducing device that are gear modification to reduce the bycatch. Here you can see several different species. And also here, vulnerable species. I don't know if you saw this. Okay. This is the rapido trolling, typical of Italy, of the Adriatic. You have usually 4 gears like this one. You can guess also the dimension, more or less 4 meters wide and 8 meters long. All around the world, this is not a bottom trolling. In Italy, this is a bottom trolling. All around the world, this is a cage. If you go in the North Sea, this gear is, but also in Croatia, this gear is categorized as dredge because it has a frame, rake in the lower part. And obviously, this is a gear that has a very strong bottom contact. If you see the speed, you can imagine why this type of gear is called rapid troll. In the North Sea, they classify this type of gear as a beam troll. Beam means spar. Here the beam is a wooden table, and but you can appreciate here the speed. About 7, 8 knots. If you can imagine, you can guess exactly the swept area of this gear because you have 4 meters wide, 4 gears, and 8 knot of speed. I don't know if you saw the impact of this gear. When you recover the net, is like this. Therefore, you can imagine also the impact that this gear has on the bottom. And in the past, we did this type of project with a science canzoner. I don't know, probably some of you are familiar with this device, but you can have a kind of picture of the bottom. And we use this in a different way because this type of device, the science canzoner, it is commonly used to find, let's say, object on the bottom, or to find, let's say, pipeline, etc. We use this to verify the bottom impact of the different types of terrain. Here you can see the bottom troll and also the cloud raised by the 2 doors. But here they are the 4 rapido trolls, and here you can clearly see the impact of this type of gear on the bottom. This is the page troll, which is a net used to catch small pelagic. Here in the Adriatic, we only have the pair troll, which is 2 vessels, 1 net, very big net. You have to imagine that this part of net here is something like 40, 50 meters. And in the vertical one, you have something like 15, less than 20 meters, let's say. But you have to imagine that during towing, 1 hour, you can swept a big area. That is mainly because they have to catch very big school of fish. This one, for instance, is these balls here, sometimes it's just a part of the catch. And you have to guess that these balls here is something like from 5 to 800 kilos. And you can have until, at least in the past, not now. In the past, I remember 10, 11 of these for each hole. Therefore, you can imagine the amount of fish. This is a quite old video. Now they are putting all these fish in ice and water. Okay. this is a portrait. You have a very big net here, up to 2,000 meters and more than 100 meters in depth. And this type of gear is used to encircle a fishing area and to catch basically the big one, bluefin tuna, but the same techniques is used also for anchovies with the land, the lampara. Now they are using this type of net, especially for the bluefin tuna, because they catch the tuna and they transfer the tuna in these big cages here. And they tow this net with the tuna to the fish farm. Usually they are located, let's say, more than 80% they are in Malta. And this is what happened when they catch the tuna and they transfer to the cage. They are used to open this kind of window here. They are using divers. Probably the video is not so good, but you can see some divers around this window. And they have to monitor each single fisherman with video cameras. That's why they have also divers, and there are software to also, let's say, assign a weight to each single specimen. But as you can see from the video, which is quite long, okay, sometimes the catch is so huge that they make one hole and they finish their yearly quota. This type of fishing is from, let's say, late May until June, July, more or less. After this, the quota is over, the national quota, because this is one of the few, let's say, fishery in Italy or species that are managed with quota in the Mediterranean. The ICAT, which is the International Commission for the Atlantic Tuna, define the quota, the total quota for the parties. The European Commission divide this quota among member states, and each single member state divide again this quota according to vessel, gear, etc. But I want to show you these videos just for people that are not really familiar with the fishing activity, because later on we will see. This is a single fishing operations, and you can see here there are thousands of bluefin tuna. Then they transfer with these big cages on land, and they feed the tuna until the Japanese say, okay, it's the time to eat. Exactly the same procedure is with the Lampara net. The only difference is that for the bluefin tuna, they usually use sightings. In the past, they use aeroplanes. Presently, the use of airplane to identify the school of tuna is forbidden, but so who knows what usually do an aeroplane over an area. So is forbidden just in theory, let's say. But in this case, the fish is schooled with the use of lamps from these small vessels, and then the biggest vessel shoot the net around this area, and they catch the basically anchovies. The quality of fish obviously here is much better than in the page troll that we saw before, because the fish is still alive and untouched by the gear. They take the fish and they put immediately in water and ice. Okay, I don't know if you know this this gear, let's say, it's a fish aggregating device. It is commonly used in Sicily, Calabria, in the south of Italy. It is used to aggregate fish here. Then they use an encircling net around this, let's say, this float. They use palm leaves because there are some species that are attracted by the shadow of these palm leaves. The problem is that this device is anchored on the bottom with this type of big stones. But at the end of the fishing season, they simply cut the twine, and on the bottom remain this type of stones. I was there in Malta. Malta is really famous for this type of fisheries. It is plenty. And every single hole with bottom trawling, you can catch one or two of these big stones, and sometimes you break totally the net. I just showed you all this type of gear because they are responsible for the high level of bycatch of sensitive or vulnerable species. Obviously, also the set nets, the fixed net like this. Fixed nets is because they use anchor to anchor the net on the bottom. They are fixed. Therefore, we have the gill net, one single netting panel, the travel net, where you have 3 different netting panels, and the combined net, which is a mix. The lower part is a travel net, the upper part is a gill net. This is simply how it works. You set the net for, let's say, 12 hours, and then you recover the net, and the net in the water is a kind of wall for fish that can come to the net. Well, that's it. Another type of passive net, but not fixed net, is this one, which is a drift net. In Italy, we have legal drift nets like this that are used, let's say, in the south of Italy, but also in Trieste. I found some of them in the past. You have to use meshes less than 100 millimeters, because if you use large meshes, such as in the past, the old Spadara nets, you can catch a huge amount of vulnerable species, shark, turtles, dolphins. Therefore, that's why the Spadara nets, you are familiar with this term. Spadara nets were very large drift nets, let's say more than 20 meters in the drop, several kilometers, 10 kilometers. The wall of death, they call, because in the past they caught several dolphins, marine mammals, etc. When I started a few years ago, a life project, which is called Delphi, at the beginning, in one of the project areas that was in the Aeolian archipelago, we found 2 sperm whales caught in illegal drift nets like the Spadara nets. That's why they are forbidden, but it's a fight. In the past, I worked for, let's say, 15 years with the Coast Guard in the fishery control. And when we fly over the Aeolian archipelago, it was plenty of this illegal net, even if they were illegal since 20 years. Okay, these are the target species of these small drift nets. Not important. Another important fishing, let's say, fishing gear is this one, which is the long line. Several thousand of hooks, very large hooks, used to catch basically swordfish, bluefin tuna, and alla lunga, the albacore. This is the bait, and this is how it works. They set all the gear, which can be up to even 60 kilometers, just to give you an idea of the dimension of this gear, 60 kilometers. After this, they come back to the beginning and start to recover the gear. And that's why they catch tunas, swordfish, I have to run. Tuna, swordfish, like this one, very small one. When you catch very small, very small swordfish, probably you are fishing in around September, October, which is the recruiting period for that species. That's why it usually should be forbidden. And also, as you saw here, are the bycatch species. This is the bycatch, okay? Prenatial and other species, like this one. This is a prenatial for sure. And that's a shame because, let's say, 100 or almost 100%, close to 100% of these species are dead. In the last year, fishers develop another type of gears, which is called the trap line. We are working on this, and it seems that a promising solution also to reduce the bycatch is something different. They don't use the hooks, so they use a kind of little trap made of twine, several circles of twine, 1, 2, 3, 4. We have to monitor this new type of gear, and so we see. This is also a long line, but a bottom long line used on the bottom to catch, let's say, whitefish, or like this, big eggs and other spirits, but the gear is the same. So let me know if you want to stop whenever you want. Otherwise, we have to close at 6:30. Okay. Okay, let's make a break now. Okay.
Sì, o di più corte o una più lunga, quindi è proprio
Vabbè,
la vostra
facciamo
discrezione.
adesso. Se riusciamo finiamo un po' prima delle 6:30, almeno ci andiamo a cercare.
Caffè, grazie.
Sì, grazie, grazie.
Anzi,
Sì, sì. Sì, 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 sì.
Giusto. Ti chiudo la finestra che l'avevo lasciata aperta.
Ma sì, sì. Ma pure adesso la lasciamo aperta dopo quando ricominciamo, chiudo io.
Sei cliccato anche per essere da pesca là di dietro. Sì, no, cioè, sì. No, come va? È terribile. One and then is that the individual in the position based on the simply it's another term say Yeah, the same thing. Yeah. 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 Yeah, the population doesn't want any problem. No, no, no. Yeah. It's quite yeah, I know. I work with the mission, so a lot of time with that, with the devotion. So we do the music like what I'm doing, and we I'm like, yeah. Yeah, so many, yeah. Yeah, yeah, and the trophy is fun. And that are not the biggest about the war. I mean, these are the one that is a lot of things. The opportunity. I never been on that shared conversation about that. Yeah, and this, the other thing that we can see on wow, it needs to happen because I was going to go. So yeah. Yeah.
Okay, let's restart. So when we speak about the protected species, vulnerable species, sensitive species, I mean species that deserve protection, knowledge is essential because without the proper knowledge on the problem, how big is the problem, about the areas, there are some hotspot areas for bycatch, which type of fishing gears are most impacting in specific species. The knowledge also deals with the knowledge of bycatch reducing devices, which type of gear modification I can try to reduce the bycatch. And also the biology, the distribution of the species. All this knowledge is essential to define management measures that could be closed areas or season for certain species, and also, let's say, gear modification. Therefore, the knowledge is essential. Basically, as probably all the type of data dealing with fishery, we have two types of data that are the fishery dependent data and the fishery independent data. I think that yesterday probably you had a lesson with Giuseppe Scarcella, and probably he stressed this part of the story. But sometimes instead of making estimates, especially for let's say vulnerable species, instead of making estimates of the population at sea, we can approach this problem with a risk assessment. I mean, yesterday Giuseppe probably spoke about the assessment, stock assessment, benchmark, reference point, etc. Dealing with bycatch is even more complicated because even if sometimes some types of bycatch is quite common, it remains a quite unusual phenomenon. Therefore, we can approach this problem with a risk assessment. Identify the area and the gear that pose a threat for a species, rather than estimating exactly the level of bycatch or the how many specimens we can get without affecting the population at sea. One of the most famous approach is this one that we are dealing with in the last few years, which is the productivity and susceptibility analysis, the PSA, because you have the productivity, which is a parameter that concerns the species, the biology, and the susceptibility that mostly relate to the fishing gear and to the area. By combining the productivity and the susceptibility, you have the vulnerability of this species, but I will show you better. By putting together productivity and susceptibility, you will have this type of data or graph where you can define the, let's say, the potential risk for that specific species with that specific gear, etc. Red is not so good, green is good, as usual. So dealing with the vulnerable species, we have here in Mediterranean another complication because we are considering different sets of different list of species. We have the list of vulnerable species of the GFCM, but I don't know if you are familiar with the ICES. The ICES is the organization, the scientific organization that mostly focused on the Atlantic and the North Europe, but in some way also in the Mediterranean. GFCM and ICES have different list of species for the vulnerable species. Therefore, this complicates a bit the story. But, okay, coming back to the PSA, the PSA is a qualitative and quantitative approach to guess the potential risk of bycatch of certain species. I would say quantitative because some attributes of each indicator can be based on expert judgment. Here we have the productivity, and for each attribute, let's say here we are speaking about elasmo branch. As you can see, the attributes are the average age of maturity, the maximum age, the fecundity, all the life history traits of the species. And according to the level of, let's say, age of maturity, etc., you can assign a different score from 1 to 3, high, moderate, and low. This is a quite simple approach. I mean, the simplest that you can find to identify the potential risk for a vulnerable species. The matter is to assign a score, a ranking for the productivity. The productivity is based on different attributes, and you can score each attribute from 1 to 3. Same story, but with different levels, because the cetacean pinnipeds are different from elasmo branch, etc. But the approach is the same, the scoring for the different attributes from 1 to 3. And the same for seabirds and sea turtles. You see the attributes. You can change these attributes, and you can use, if you don't have information, you can use only the attributes where you have information, for instance. The matter is that you have to produce a ranking of the different attributes. You can base this on information that you can get from references, life base. If you are dealing with fish, you can do for fish, you can use FishBase. The other part of the story is the susceptibility. Susceptibility, again, you can assign a score for the different attributes of the susceptibility. For instance, the aerial overlap, where the species overlap with the fishing effort. You can score this overlap from 1 to 3, scoring the. You can define this based on your experience. That's why it's a quantitative index. The selectivity of the gear. The matter here is that consider that the gear for sure encounter a specific species. What is the level? What is the probability that this gear can catch this species? I make an example. The dolphins. Speaking about Ursus truncatus. The aerial overlap, the first attributes between the dolphins and the, let's say, long line is really high, because long lines are using the same area where you can find the dolphins. But the selectivity of the gear is really low, because probably the probability to catch a dolphin with a long line is practically 0. Therefore, in this case, we have a very low selectivity, and you can score this like 1. Here you can use vertical overlap, for instance. If you consider a species that in the aerial overlap, the species that overlap with a specific fishing gear, Speaking about, let's say, dolphin and bottom trawling here in the Adriatic. The areal overlap of dolphin and bottom trawling is really high because when you use bottom trawling, you can see all around you dolphins. It is quite common, but the vertical overlap is quite low. I mean, in the water column, dolphins stay usually in the upper level, while bottom troll is on the bottom. Therefore, the probability of catching dolphins with the bottom troll is really low. The contrary for the sea turtles, for instance. The areal overlap is really high because you can find in the same area sea turtles and bottom trolling. Sea turtles stay or spend most of the time on the bottom, especially here where we have less than 50 meters of depth. Therefore, the catchability of the gear is really high. Therefore, for that species, we have a high level of susceptibility composed with the productivity. You have a high vulnerability of turtles here in the Adriatic. Yes, just to deepen this, for the susceptibility, usually we use this type of attributes: areal overlap, vertical, selectivity, the post-capture mortality, and also the bycatch rate when you have this type of deformation, because sometimes you don't have any information about the bycatch rate. And yes, sometimes you can also use the UCN level, saying that this species is really rare, or quite common. This is an index of the presence of the species in an area. Yes, for this specific study, at that time we use the productivity, we use the fish base. For the susceptibility, all the other attributes that I showed you before. For the species distribution, this is a big issue because we don't have several information. At least when you have to deal with one species, this could be not easy, but you can find information. Let's say quite common species such as the loggerhead sea turtle, you know more or less the distribution in the Mediterranean. But for other species, quite rare species, is really difficult. Sometimes you can use aquamaps that provide for each single species the habitat suitability, and you can use these as areal for the presence and for the distribution of that species. For the effort, you have other possibility. Probably here there are people more skilled than me on this, but there are several different sources of data for the effort. Speaking about bottom trawling and bigger vessels, the main problem is about the coastal fisheries, where you don't have so much information from the AIS, Automatic Information System, and other stuff. Therefore, for the small-scale fisheries operating in coastal areas, obviously we have a problem. In this case, you can use simply the official fishing effort reported in national data from the ministry, supposing that they operate, let's say, within 3 miles from the coast. But this is an assumption. This is, for instance, the areal overlap. I don't remember which species is this one, probably sea turtles, maybe. This is the spatial distribution and the areal overlap. The approach is that you find the distribution of the species, you overlap this with the fishing effort, and you have the potential risk for that species with that specific gear. Okay, this is the vertical overlap, but I spoke about that before. Okay, for the bycatch, again, if you have the bycatch rates, obviously this is a good indicator of the presence of that species in an area and of the probability of catching a species with a specific gear. And and then you can rank also these type of data attributes, the bycatch rate. UCN, here you have a list for, let's say, for some species, from some species, and you can see also that for certain species, the as I said at the beginning of this lesson, the score of the protection level of each species can vary from year to another. And this is what happened for I don't remember which species is this one. Probably yes. It's really small. There are sea turtles, but you cannot see, and other species. Okay, we rank this for sub-region, very large region, which are not so big from the eyes of experts from other regions, because we are dealing with Adriatic Sea. For us is a big area because we have the Northern Adriatic, Medium, and South Adriatic. But if you speak with a scientist from the North Sea, Adriatic is enough. But it depends on the level that you want to tackle. And this is the situation for, let's say, sea turtles, seabirds, pelagic elasmobranch, demersal elasmobranch, and marine mammals. You can produce a map of the potential risk for each fishing gear. Here you have the gear. OTB is the bottom trawling. TM is the pelagic trawling. LLD is the long line, and so on. GEN is the passive gear. Therefore, we produce this PSA, the potential risk of bycatch for certain species in certain areas. Obviously, this was a quite brutal work because at that time we didn't have any detailed data. You can use this approach in poor data situation, obviously, such as the case of bycatch. Otherwise, you should calibrate these according to fleet segment. Obviously, bottom trawling 50 meters has a different behavior of a bottom trawling of 30 meters. Season. The species can have a different distribution according to season. Therefore, the potential risk can change by season. But, okay, when you don't have any different type of data, this is quite enough. Here, for example, we did the same, but reducing to GSA level, not to the sub-region, the Adriatic, Black Sea, Central, Western, etc. Therefore, it depends on the type of data that you have, the quality of data. Otherwise, the same approach we used in the past, for instance, to have a kind of risk assessment or potential risk of bycatch. We used satellite data of sea turtles, overlapping this with the fishing effort of bottom trawling. We identify some specific area where we can have an hotspot of bycatch for sea turtles. As you can see, for example, here we found in the North Adriatic a key area for the overlapping between the species distribution and bottom trawling effort in the Adriatic. I don't know if I have this. Okay, I made I made a mistake, but the meaning was that according to this figure, now in the North Adriatic, just in front of the Po River, we have a site of community importance, a Natura 2000 site, I mean, which in theory deserves a kind of protection. But at the moment, there is not any management measures there. That's why there is an infringement procedures also for Italy, because we have Natura 2000 sites that are protected just in theory because Italy doesn't set any protection measures in these specific areas. Oh yeah, that one. We have this area here just in front of the Pearl River. I want to run here because another approach is the PBR, which is the potential biological removal, which is a kind of benchmark for the bycatch, for the protected species. But this approach entails that you have to know the real population of that specific species at sea, which is a big issue. In Italy, we can do this only for a few species. I mean, for a few protected species. Let's say dolphins, probably, because I don't know if recently, but in the past, there was a cross-country aerial survey for monitoring the presence of dolphins in the Adriatic, Tyrrhenian, and the Strait of Sicily. There is a standard survey from the aeroplane to transects. According to these sightings that they make during this survey, they were able to make estimates of the population at sea. The PBR is simply how much of this population you can remove from the population without affecting the state of this population. For, let's say, as a precautionary approach, they use actually the 10% of this population as a reasonable threshold for the bycatch, I mean. But, okay, skip this because it's quite a good approach, but for the moment it's just in theory because we don't have any population estimates for the Mediterranean here. That is a task probably for the ISPRA here in Italy, but I'm pretty sure they don't know the real situation of that species, and that's a problem. Okay. I want to run here because, but the approach is the one that I explained later. Then we also have this prohibited gear. As a management, we can have closed areas for season. We can forbid some specific gear. These are the famous Spadara nets. This image was taken in 2020 probably, and this was a sperm whale totally entangled in this type of net. This is just to give you an idea of the length of each net. This was a net confiscated by the Coast Guard, something like 10 kilometers, no, 15 probably. And each single net is more than 20 meters depth. Therefore, you can imagine the bycatch. For the marine mammals, here we have the different, let's say, problem that we have. The fishery pose a threat for mammals due to the entanglement, obviously, but also for the injuries. The dolphins can touch the net and can be injured due to this. But the fisheries can reduce the habitat suitability for certain species. Also, the fisheries can reduce the dolphins. That's why dolphins are developing. They develop a depredation behavior. They know very well that if they follow the pair trawling, they for sure will find easy prey. anchovies that are discarded from vessel. Another problem is the ingestion of piece of nets in the stomach that cause the delayed mortality in the long period. The other problem is that marine mammals pose a threat also for fishers because they steal fish, they damage the nets, or they can damage the fish coat in the net, which is no longer marketable. They can reduce the catch rate, or they can remove bait from the long line, for instance. Therefore, these interactions is negative for both marine mammals, especially dolphins, and fisheries. These are the species that we can find here in the Mediterranean, and the problem sometimes is not only the nets, but also the presence of floats, ropes, etc. And you can find the species entangled also here in the rope, not only in the net. Sometimes they ingest the net, I said before. This is a stranded dolphins, and you can see that the stomach was completely full of nets. The type of injuries also depends on where the net or where they hit the gear. This type of net, the drift nets, are illegal since 98, if I remember well. Okay, I don't want to waste time again. Marine mammals with bottom trawling. We have all this type of gear here in the Adriatic. The most common interaction is the depredation from the net. Dolphins are interacting with the codon, and they try to prey on the fish already caught in the net. And this is how you can find the fish after holding the net, which is completely spoiled. And you can imagine that this fish is no longer marketable. The other type of interaction is the bycatch, as in this case in a pelagic trawling. Pelagic trawling is the only mandatory fishery that we have to monitor with a specific monitoring in Italy, according to the EU regulation 81/2, if I remember. That is mainly because, if I remember how the net is made, they have this type of net has a very big mouth, and therefore it's quite easy that the overlap between the dolphin and the fish, this specific fishing gear, cause the bycatch of this species. This is how they depredate fish from the codon. Now is almost a quite famous video that we did a few years ago, but now. But there are another type of interaction that you can find between dolphins and, let's say, in this type, the bottom trawling, which is a kind of playful behavior. This dolphin seems exactly to play with the net. I mean, there is not any interaction for food or for prey, etc. The dolphin simply seems to play with the net. Obviously, it's a risky play, but it's a risky game, but okay. Yes, this is the same for the purseine. Here, that's let's say a photo that we made in the Aeolian archipelago, where dolphins usually interact with this type of gear, always to steal fish from the net. Obviously, when you encircle a very big area with a purseine, there is a risk to catch also dolphins, such as in this case. The dolphin safe label.
How can it impact how many fish a dolphin receive Well, good question. I don't know exactly the number, but from the video and from the acoustic recording, we can guess that dolphins, let's say in an hour of tow, they are present for an hour. They stay all the day, and they are quite selective sometimes because, okay, they do not eat everything, but they prefer octopus or Eledone moscata. They are quite selective on this. Yeah. And this is what happened, especially in the Pacific Ocean or in the big ocean when they catch, let's say, albacore or yellowfin tuna. They were used to encircle the dolphins because if you see a group of dolphins jumping and eating in an area, probably below the dolphins there are also tunas. That's why they were used to encircle everything. Obviously, this practice is forbidden. That's why there are several different dolphin safe label, etc. But so who knows what happened at 200 miles from the coast without any onboard observer, I mean. The same, I explained this before. I don't want to lose time on this. For sea turtles, the most of interaction is about entanglement. So the turtles is by quote injuries for sure. We found, but I will show you later. Ingestion of hook in the long line. This is probably the first cause of the of mortality in the south and in the Mediterranean Sea. And in the past, I hope also voluntary injuries. I made a review of the papers from, I don't remember, Capo Verde probably, where one of the main reasons of mortality was for human consumption. Therefore, in some area of the world, there is also this type of problem. There is a typo. Turtles can still fish, but most of interactions that negatively affect the fishers is the loss of time. They have to remove the hook from the mouth. They have to. That's why sometimes in the long line they simply cut the branch line over long line, and that's all. But this practice is deadly for sea turtles because after this they ingest the branch line and they encounter a delayed mortality in a short time, I mean. Yes, these are the turtles that are mostly present here, especially loggerhead. In the last few years, we also have the green turtles, and sometimes, but only a few sightings of the leatherback, the Luton turtle. This is more or less the distribution of these species, and that's why it's important to have a potential risk. This is the distribution of the species. In red, you have the demersal distribution, where the species, where the turtle comes to feed. These are foraging habitats. Then in green, there are the pelagic habitats. And then you can easily imagine that in the red area, the most important problem is with fishing gears that operate on the bottom, such as the bottom trolling and the bottom long line and passive nets, obviously. In the green one, the main problem will be with pelagic long lines. In the green area, the green areas are quite important for the catch of bluefin tuna, swordfish, etc. That's why the bycatch with long line mostly happen in these areas. For the passiveness, this is what happened. They find the passive net on the bottom, and obviously they can get caught in the net. In this case, the direct mortality is quite high because if you imagine that the net is left on the bottom for 12 hours, if the turtle is caught at the beginning of the set, the turtle cannot stay 12 hours without breathing. And therefore, the direct mortality is quite high. Another parameters that affect the sea turtle mortality in passive nets are related to the fishing gear parameters. In this case, if you use the passive nets close to, let's say, to a nesting beach, you should avoid to use very small meshes because the possibility of entanglement for the small turtles is really high. But the opposite, I mean, the use of large meshes is deadly for most of protected species. The famous problem with the swordfish nets, the spadara nets that I told you before. That's why, Linda, I told you to collect also this information about the mesh size, because it's really important. Pelagic trawling, yes. These are images that we taken here in the Adriatic. In the North Adriatic especially, and especially in some season, it's quite common to catch turtles. And the same also for bottom trawling. These are some videos that we recorded more than 10 years ago, but I remember that in some holes, 1 hour of tow, I mean, you can get until 8 or 10 turtles per hour, especially in October, November. Therefore, that's a big issue for turtle bottom trawling. Rapido trawling, I told you this is a typical gear used here in the Adriatic, and we didn't know if this type of gear was affecting the sea turtles, because you can imagine that collecting data in bycatch is difficult because fishers tend to underreport their catch. But at a certain time, we recovered turtles like this. The one was completely, how do you say? There are injuries from the rake, as you can see here, and also on the bottom. These turtles survived, but obviously you can see that we identify the rapido trawl as the main cause of death. The pelagic long line and the bottom long line, again, turtles are attracted by the bait, obviously, quite simple. And we found that several turtles can be caught in a long line. This is just a part of a long line. Sometimes they use several of these bags. Therefore, you can imagine 60 kilometers of hooks represent a big issue for turtles in the pelagic environment. For the log line, all these parameters can affect the bycatch: the hook size, the hook shape, the size and the type of bait, but also the depth setting. For instance, in the last, let's say, 10 years, in the Mediterranean Sea, they started to use mesopelagic long line instead of pelagic long lines. Therefore, they are going to use a deeper long line, and this behavior strongly reduces the bycatch of turtles. Therefore, this is a good solution. The branch line length, if you use very large branch line, if the fishers cut the branch line when they recover the net, the turtle, because they don't want to leave the turtle from the water to the vessel, because sometimes it's really heavy, more than 80 kilos. Therefore, they simply cut the branch line, and this is deadly for the turtle. All these parameters also affect the bycatch and also the mortality. Consider that each hooks each hook has the barb. This point that can be extremely dangerous for the turtle. And also the type of bait is really important because also in this case they are really keen because turtles are mostly attracted by squid and not by fish like mackerel. Not so bad. Shark and rays, the main interaction for them is the bycatch, obviously. And dealing with shark, the main problem is that only a few species are protected. And the main problem also is that most of them has a market importance. If you consider Spinarolo, Squalus acantias, Gattuccio, Palombo, they are shark, but rays, they are shark, but they have a commercial importance. Therefore, it's not so easy to say to fishers, okay, don't go there to catch sharks, or don't change your gear and use these because we want you don't catch sharks. These are the most common that we have for the bycatch, rays and different sharks. For the bottom trawling, here we have some pictures. Here probably is around Chioggia. The fishers send me these pictures. In certain periods, they caught several hundred sharks for each one. This is the problem of rapid troll. Probably, Francesca, when you go to Solomon, it is quite common to have this situation. For the long line, again, the same story as turtle. Sharks are attracted by the bait and they remain caught in the hook. This was a bottom long line. This is, I don't know the English name, the capopiatto, the Exanchus. This was something like this table, I remember, in the Ionian Sea. And unfortunately, we caught this because with the bottom long line, it's quite common also to catch bycatch species. Yes, these were rays caught here in the Adriatic with passive nets in the north, not so far from here, in the North Adriatic. They are used to catch a lot of this because rays are target species for that fisheries. We are speaking not so far from Marina di Ravenna. This was a practice of the finning, not a problem here in the Mediterranean, but in other countries, yes. So dealing with the bycatch reducing devices, these are modifications that you can make to your fishing gear to reduce the bycatch. Some type of bycatch reducing device can be adopted by fishers on a voluntary basis, such as this last type of gear, which is the trap line that I mentioned before. It's a new gear introduced by the fishers. Obviously, the initial target was not to reduce bycatch, absolutely. The reason was to catch bigger swordfish and to avoid the use of bait, because with the new trap line, if you want to, I have some pictures of this, but not here in the presentation. By using this trap line, they don't use bait. Consider that the bait can cost up to €5 a kilo. And if you have a long line with 7,000 hooks, you can imagine the price of this bait for each travel. That's why they developed this new solution. But other type of technologies can be introduced by management. as a mandatory measures. For instance, consider the bottom trolling. I will show you later. In the bottom trolling, in some countries of the Asia, no, Africa, they are targeting shrimps. And if they want to export this shrimp to the United States, this bottom trolling must be equipped with sorting grids to avoid the catch of turtles. This is mandatory. Otherwise, you cannot export your product to the United States. And the same goes for Italy. We had this problem with the catch of the red shrimp in the Strait of Sicily. The matter is that they catch red shrimp at 800 meters of depth, where you don't have any type of turtles at that depth. But again, United States asked for the use of these sorting grids. Now we have some vessels from Zara del Vallo. They export red shrimp to the United States, and in theory, they should be equipped with this type of grid.
Can you show us the bar that you were mentioning earlier?
Yeah. You mean the sorting grid? Yeah. I have the picture later. Okay, when you have to introduce a new technology, you have to know the problem, which type of species you want to avoid, but also which type of species you want to catch. Because if you want to introduce a new solution, technical solution to a fishing gear, you have to consider the commercial part, the economic part. You cannot propose fishers something a new solutions without considering the economic part. Therefore, for this part, it's essential to have several sea trials to demonstrate that your solutions are okay, both for saving the species, but also for saving the commercial part of the catch. Okay, I want to run here because it's really detailed and I don't want to. But when you introduce a new device, you have to consider several issues that to be practical issues. Certain solutions can be impossible for certain types of vessels, or simply because fishers has a different operational behavior. You have to consider the short-term economic loss, the possible economic loss, and you have to demonstrate the long-term economic gain. But obviously, when you speak with fishers, probably some of you has experience on this, it's quite difficult to speak about the long-term economic gain. Okay, don't catch sole of 15 or 20 centimeters, catch a bigger sole. So in theory is very good, in practical terms it's not so. Therefore, when you develop a bycatch reducing device, you have to consider the involvement of stakeholders since the beginning. Yes, all these issues should be considered before introducing a new technology. The technology should be practical. Let's see. You cannot change so much the behavior of a fisher. I mean, you cannot change too much the gear. You cannot change too much the practice on board. Therefore, the solution should be acceptable for fishers, for managers, and also enforceable, because you cannot insert something that you cannot control. Okay. When you're speaking about bycatch reducing devices, we have to consider let's say, the morphology of a species that we want to avoid, also the behavior and the physiology of the species. And what we can do is, let's say, simply modifying the net, modifying the ground rope, or inserting something completely different, a new device in a gear. Otherwise, another approach is to completely change the gear. Therefore, or you modify the meshes, the netting, etc. Or you modify the ground gear and the head rope of the gear, or you can use bycatch reducing devices, a device like a grid that I said before, but I will show you later. Or you can completely change the gear. We can catch these species with another gear. Let's think about it's quite difficult, obviously. We try to insert, for instance, in some fisheries, a completely different types of pod instead of passive nets. But so fishers need to digest the big change, I mean. But if you consider, for instance, the rapid trawling here in the Adriatic, yes, they catch a huge amount of common salt. But if you think we have a less impacting gear, they can catch the same, that are simply a gill net. Also, the small fishers catch a lot of sole in the Adriatic. Therefore, it's a political discussion for the, let's say, we need to ban the rapid trawling. There is a discussion since 20 years about this gear, but it is not an easy task. But probably gillnet could be a gear that we can use instead of rapid trawling, even if for each single fisher the amount of catch is really low compared to rapid trawling. But consider that the rapid trawling more or less use something like 1,300, 400 euros a day for fuel. A small scale vessel use 100 euros per day. Therefore, the difference. So, how many sole you have to catch to make a gain? Even considering that rapid trawling has on board 5, 6, 7 people. When we speak about modifying the netting, we can simply modify the shape of the net, as we did for the, let's say, the bottom trawl. The regulation of the 2006 changed the meshes for diamond to square mesh. If you use square mesh, obviously the mesh stay open more than a diamond mesh, therefore is more selective. Obviously, this is not a matter for sensitive or vulnerable species, but for selectivity to improve the catch of the commercial species, the dimension of that species. You can modify the netting by inserting, let's say, a square mesh window, as they do in the North Atlantic. Or we published several papers on this, again, on the dimension of the mesh size. For the drift nets in Italy, you have to use netting with meshes no more than 100 millimeters, which is regulated as an opposite of, let's say, bottom trawling. In the bottom trawling, the regulations say you cannot use meshes smaller than 40 millimeters square. Here, you can't use meshes more than 100 millimeters. The reason is that if you use large meshes, you can increase the probability of catching sensitive species. In some paper, we suggested to reduce these 100 millimeters to 80 or even more conservative to 70 millimeters, even because the target species of that fishery are small, medium pelagic species. Therefore, there is no reason for using 100 millimeters. The reason is about fishers because they want to catch palamita, sarda, the bonito, which is illegal. Okay, again, this is what we saw later. But the old story is that the use of large meshes, such as in this case, we compare the different meshes of a gillnet, GNS 140, GNS 72, and GTR is the trammel net. And we see that for turtle, the use of large meshes gill nets 140, and the use of trammel net. They have external big panels of net. The use of this type of gear strongly increase the probability of catching turtles. This is all this story. Okay. I have this video that, but so it is not a fishing gear. This was a net that we used to encircle an area close to the coast. But this is just to show that if you use small meshes, the risk of entanglement is really low for turtle. It simply touches the net and swim again away. Again, this is not a fishing net, but this was a net that, a kind of swimming pool that we use to for turtles before releasing them. But if you see, they didn't entangle in the meshes. Again, the use of small meshes close to the nesting beaches is a problem. Okay, this is the grid here, the hard or rich grid that you can use in a bottom trawling. Otherwise, you can use other stuff to reduce the bycatch, etc. There are several different meaning, but the turtle excluder device, which is this type of grid, works like this. It's a barrier for large megafauna. There is a hole in the net. The turtle can go away from the net, and the commercial catch can pass through the bar of the grid until the coder. Okay. Yes, this is how the turtle excluder device works. Obviously, it is not an easy task. I remember a few years ago there was a project that asked us some tips on how to use this type of grid. But so honestly, they used personnel that was not skilled on fishing technology, students, etc. But if you want to have a success when you are working with fishes, especially in gear modification, you have to use skilled personnel on fishing technology. Otherwise, your results will be zero. In fact, in this project, the results were zero. This is how it works. This is an old video. They simply take a turtle, put the turtle inside the troll, and try to see if the grid works well. They use divers. They take the turtles and another trip inside the net. We cannot perform such a type of experiment in Italy, absolutely. But okay. That's why at the beginning, to try if the grid worked, we started working in 2007. If you see here, with big tank, then we started improving day by day. But it is not an easy task, as I told you before. You have to use skilled personnel because every single trial can be a fail like this. You have to improve with different material, etc., until we reach the final configuration, which is the same used since 30 years in the United States. Therefore, the final results is do not start from the scratch every time when you make research. That probably someone before you did the same. Therefore, try to copy and paste from the past, I mean. Yes, this is a grid, how it works. What is new from our side respect to the past is that we arranged the solution that is used in the United States in the Mediterranean, which is not an easy task because the fishery is completely different, and mostly we use also a different grid like this, which was a flexible one. And this type of grid compared to the rigid one, the aluminum grid, strongly improved the maneuverability. Was really easy to use for fishers. And we come back to the beginning, we have to propose solutions that are easy for fishers also. Okay, we provide different type of grid. And here we demonstrate that there were not economic loss. If you see, this is at the end of the boat. When the vessel reduced the speed, the fish, at the beginning, the fish swim against the current. When the vessel reduced the speed for rolling the net, the fish turn and go to the codem. They pass through the bars and reach the codem. Therefore, in this part, in the upper part, the net was completely open here. There are several different technical stuff, the angle of the grid. You have to arrange everything in a perfect way, otherwise you have economic loss. That's why we measure this angle. You have to consider in your trial the analysis of the commercial part of the catch, etc., etc. Here we demonstrate that there were not any commercial loss by using these, not everywhere, but here in the Adriatic, especially in the North Adriatic, they target small species and we didn't have any economic loss. Okay, probably I put too much slide here. Another way for, let's say, stimulating fishers was this one, because if you use the grid, you can improve the catch quality. Here on the left, we used our grid. On the right side, this was a twin troll, two nets towed by the same gear, by the same vessel. And here we demonstrated that the use of grid strongly improved the quality of fish. This could be a way to stimulate the fishers. Another way is the reduction of marine litter, because you can avoid the marine litter. And okay, these are the same. We produce this manual, but okay. Another way to reduce bycatch in passive nets is the use of lamps, such as in this case. The problem is that you have to attach one by one these lamps on the head rope. We tried this here in the Adriatic. The results were excellent because in practical terms, we zeroed the bycatch with passive nets. The main problem is that in this present configuration, this solution is not manageable for fishers, because you have to attach one by one. At the end, you have to switch on one by one, switch off one by one. Therefore, we have to find a way to, they are working on that. We have colleagues from the NOAA, they are working with the solar panels to give power to these lamps. Otherwise, you cannot use it like this. Even because we have to use one lamp every 50 meters, more or less. If you consider from 2 to 5,000 meters the length of a net, you can imagine how many lamps you have to mount on the net rope. They work, for sure, but it is not a practical solution until now. And again, here we demonstrate that there were not any commercial loss, especially here the main target was the common sole, and the graph, I don't want to explain, this is a catch comparison based on the length of the species, but there is not any commercial loss. While in the traditional one, we caught, I don't remember how many turtles. Exactly in the experiment, only 11, but we monitored these vessels for 2 months during summer, and they caught something like 70 turtles here in the Adriatic. Not so far from Ravenna. There is an area where they are used to catch rays. They use in the middle of Adriatic, not in coastal area, quite far from the coast. There are only a few vessels likely. You can use alternative gears instead of modifying the gear, such as alternative pods. Obviously, the problem with pods is the storage on board, like in this case. To improve the catch efficiency of the pod, you have to use several pods, but sometimes if you have fixed or, let's say, a frame, the space on board is an issue. That's why in the last 10, 20 years, they started working with flexible or foldable pods, like the one that you see here. Or we use this one on the right side, which is completely foldable. But again, they are effective where in the areas where you have something to catch. Because, for instance, common sole is a species that do not like the entering the pot. Therefore, you can use pots, but you can simply fail. It was like this. You can use yes, probably these are video from Chester. If you are catching, let's say, sparrows or other whitefish, they are quite effective. This is another trip that we did in the Conero mountain. Okay, the idea is to use something different from more impacting fishing gears. Now, for example, this type of pot is used all around the Adriatic for some months. That's an indirect good solution to reduce bycatch because you cannot catch any turtles, for instance, with this type of pots. In the long lines, what you can do here, if you see there is a hook ingested by a turtle. In this case, the mortality is close to 100% because you can save the turtle just with the surgical operation, but it is not an easy task. You can cut the hook or you can change the shape of hook from J to circle hooks, like this one. The circle, because if you use circle hooks, turtles are used to ingest the J hooks more easily than the circle hooks. The circle hooks remain on the mouth. And the other part of the story is that the use of circle hook doesn't affect the commercial part. Therefore, that could be an easy solution to reduce the bycatch with drifting long lines. Okay. The other solution is to set the long line deeper, as the fishers started to do in the Mediterranean Sea. Yes, if the main line of a long line is set below 200 or 200 meters of depth, the bycatch of turtles and other marine mammals is really low. Yes, you can reduce the soak duration, but so fishers, the main target of fisher is to catch fish. If you reduce the soak time, you also reduce the probability of catching fish. So this is an effective solution, but in practical terms, you cannot say fishers, okay, do not use your gear too much to reduce the bycatch. Yes, another solution is to change the type of bait from squid to mackerel. For the shark, we use the same grid as for turtles in this project, which is the Alive project. and we demonstrate the same as turtle, more or less, even if they are not so effective with shark as with turtles, due to the dimension of our shark. I mean, if the species that you want to avoid to catch has the same dimension of a marketable species, is a problem. If you can imagine that here, one of the most important species for bottom trawling is the monkfish, Lophius. Lophius has a dimension of a small turtle sometimes, therefore it's difficult to arrange the solution on this. In other case, you can modify the foot rope. You can use in a bottom trawl a raised foot rope. Raise the foot rope from the bottom to avoid the catch of rays. I don't remember this video. I'm scared about that. Okay. Yeah, you can see that this is a bottom trawl, and the flat shark can swim below the net in this case. I don't know how they reach the rear part of the net, but it seems to work. They reduce the catch of rays. This is a video from the Turkish colleague. Here they catch something different, not common sole, no. Even if also here the common sole is not the main target of bottom trawling. They are using bottom trawling for other species also here. Common sole is not so yes, they catch not, but it is not a target. Another way to reduce the Lasmon branch bycatch in the last year is to use magnets. To be honest, I don't trust in this solution for different reasons. Even because if I remember where each single magnets costs something like 5 euros. You can imagine the price in 7,000 hooks easily. Okay, for the passive nets, there are not so many solutions. One could be raising the foot rope again, but this strongly reduces the catch of crabs. Other species can be caught again. Okay, for marine mammals, the problem is the one that I showed you before, net damage, etc. The catch damage, net damage. But what I want to show you is that one of the, not solution, but of the possible solution tested in the past is the use of the, acoustic deterrence. We did this project on dolphins starting using the DID, which is an interactive pinger. According to the factory specification, this type of pinger should emit a sound only in presence of dolphins. This device is used in the last 20 years. And when we started this project, after 1 week, we realized that this type of device, we were really surprised that nobody was aware of this, but this type of device was totally uninteractive because they switch on for every single noise in the water column. Therefore, we tried something different. This is the problem, especially with pelagic trawling, the bycatch. We used this type of pinger, but they were not so effective, honestly. We tried several different times, but at the beginning we found some bycatch or some reduction in interaction, but in the long term, this type of acoustic deterrent, after 2 or 3 years, they lose their effectiveness. I mean, that's why in the last few years we started working with artificial intelligence, trying to develop something different. We have now some prototypes. The prototypes has a small recorder, and when they feel the presence of dolphin in an area, there is a kind of small PC inside. I don't want to describe in detail this, but okay. There is a software that with a neural network recognize the presence of a dolphin in an area and send a message. So the new pinger should work only to be interactive, to be on just if the dolphin is detected in an area. The device is quite complicated because you can imagine that if you want to produce something that a fisher can use, you have to reduce the dimension, you have to reduce the price. That's why we had to develop every single component as cheap as possible, as cheap as possible. And we develop everything from zero. Now we have the first prototypes, and in the next project, we will develop until the commercial market, I mean. Yes, this is how it works. There is a recording unit and an artificial intelligence that recognize the dolphin presence and the emission. And we had to develop this step by step, every single component. And you know, one of the problems when I don't know if some of you are familiar with the neural network and artificial intelligence, but one of the main problems is to instruct the machine with several data. That's why at the beginning we lost time to have the dolphin recordings and to tag every single type of emission, from the whistles to the whisper sound, all the different emission from dolphin. Therefore, we developed a cheap hydrophone. I don't know, what's the cost of the hydrophone that you use, Greta? Yes, more or less. Yeah, there are cheapest one, a few €1,000, but again, I saw in the past, especially for sharks, they produce a kind of alert for nets when the nets, the device was when the net, the passive net, was eaten by some large pelagic species, they emit a signal. So really cool, I said. I asked, the price was something like €20,000, and I asked, but how can you imagine a fisher can buy something like this for €20,000? That's why we try to develop every single component of this hydrophone by reducing the size and the price. We have an hydrophone that costs something like €10, but we started from zero, from the really basic component. And here is the reference hydrophone, and our hydrophone. As you can see, the quality is not exactly the same, but we were able to detect the presence of a dolphin again. Okay, I don't want to lose time again here, but we started making some experiment in the not aquarium, in the marine park, they said. In Cattolica or allora. Okay, there. I don't want to show you this. Another way for reducing bycatch of and interaction with marine mammals, especially for Phocena, yes, harbor porpoise in the north, they are using these acrylic peels on the nets because they realize that the dolphins are able to detect the presence of a net if they use such a type of peers. Is a starting activity, quite new, but probably could be an interesting solution for the future. Try to make the net more easily detectable for the dolphin. Leave this out. This is a solution for pulsate, but I bet nobody in the world using this solution to avoid the catch of dolphins. Okay, this is a different operation for the pulsate, but again, this is a streamer or torii lines. They are simply lines to scare the seabirds around the long line. When you use a long line, the main problem with the seabirds are during the shooting and the recovering of the gear, when the hook is on the surface with the bait. Therefore, by using this streamer line, they can scare seabirds. We will start doing this in some areas also here in Italy, especially probably in the pelagic, in the Lampedusa. This is another solution, but the matter is you have to avoid the hook stay on the surface for a long time. Therefore, this is a way to shoot deeper the long line. Another way is simply to introduce handling practices to save dolphins, turtle, etc. There are practically 1,000 guidelines on this. Practically every single project produces guidelines on how to save dolphins and turtles. Me too. Okay. How to involve fishers. Another time probably. So the meaning of all this is that you have to involve fishers since the beginning. You have to change the narrative because the perception of the large public is that fishers are killers of dolphins, killers of turtles, etc. In our projects, usually we change this narrative since the beginning, and we involve fisher to solve the problem. Otherwise, you are working. Some of you are working on board fishing vessels, and they know, how difficult it is to speak and to demonstrate your reasons with fishers. Therefore, you have to involve them. You have to disseminate the project activity. It's really important. We will see later when I will speak about the projects. You have to engage fishers and give them responsibility. You are not speaking with kids, I mean. Therefore, you have to engage fishers and give them responsibility. We have fishers that now report the catch or the bycatch for us because we gain their trust. And you have to promote them as the first actor or the first, the main actor in the conservation process. But to gain their trust, as I said before, you have to recognize their point, what they say. You have to recognize their experience, but you have to demonstrate competence. Sometimes when I speak with fisher around Italy, you approach the fisher and he replies, oh, yes, not, without giving you any importance. When you start saying, oh, you are using this mesh is 70 millimeters, 0.60 millimeters. So he started to recognize your experience in this field, and then you can get the trust of fishers step by step. You have to construct empathy with them. And most important for all of you is go on board. I know it's hard, but especially in the first years of your activity, going on board is essential from my point of view because you can understand several different small stuff that otherwise you cannot understand on a PC. I mean, Yes, the other stuff is about projects. You have to provide accessible information. You have to offer dedicated workshops so for certain, but this part is really more difficult because fishers are literally bombarded by meetings. Well, we have to make a meeting on marine litter. We have to make it on dolphins. We have to on turtles. They have enough of this, I mean. And if useful, you have to provide technical assistance when they have a need. I mean, we have fisher, Giorgio knows very well, that every week ask us, we have this problem, you can measure our net, you have to set a very strict relationship with fisher, which is a two-way relationship, I mean. Okay, the business, okay, you have to provide something to fishers that increase or do not reduce their commercial loss, as I said before, and credibility. Publishing results in a scientific paper is not a research business. I mean, it is not a matter I want to publish because I improve my CV. It is because when you want to demonstrate something, you have to be strong and scientific credible. In the infringement procedures against Italy, for instance, there are at least 4 of my papers cited by the EU Commission, not because I'm a so great researcher, but they found my papers interesting for that specific issue. To justify that Italy didn't change enough for monitoring or for bycatch reduction. Therefore, also for your specific fields of activity, try to publish, but to publish consistent papers to demonstrate and to have credibility on your field, I mean. Therefore, the last message is the fishers collaboration is essential. And so believe me, in these projects, we involved something like more than 600 fishers all around Italy. I think we can make a stop here. Later on, I will start the most boring part of the presentation at 6 o'clock, or 5 o'clock. Okay, stop here. Sì, sì. Sono stufo della minuti.
Ciao.
Mi sono prese male, sono tornato e non hanno riportato su per fare gli ho dato 1000 sono tornato il giorno dopo per l'autorizzazione. Adesso viene il lunedì, no, grazie, cioè, noi non abbiamo mai fatto.
Se si va per i cantanieri non lasciano sempre sei tanti selection perché mi dice mandavo in pastina scorsa
tanto per piacere di nome di ok, invece possiamo sì. Ciao. Sì, sì, no, però. I'm sorry. You can't remember the previous slide in line, but like, you guys talking about all the yeah, you know. This is one this is only I think this there is a first one. Yeah. You have to take up and listen. Yes. Okay. So I
che si può
quindi non lo possibiliti. Quando deve seguire quindi di non portate di iscritti, poi vediamo come non fanno iscritti per niente. Per questo, per l'ascolto.
Io pensavo che Okay. Let's start this second section. How to prepare a good proposal. I mean, you are researchers and you are PhD students, but in the next future, probably you will be able to, or even now, to work on a project proposal. So this section could be a mess because I took several different informations and put everything together. Probably you will have some duplication. I don't know if I have time to clean a bit this presentation, but the meaning is that I wanted to show you what are the problems or the suggestion that I can provide you when you write a proposal. Therefore, that's my personal point of view more than an expert of project design. I mean, okay. Yes. I forgot that I put this sentence here. So in the EU, we have these two main type of projects that I want to speak about, that are the Horizon and the Life projects. In the last few years, they are becoming more similar. In the past, they were Horizon and Life projects, but now they have several points, common points, I mean. The Horizon Europe is a specific funding opportunity for research. When you apply for an Horizon project, you have to think about making scientific research. You have to provide results that are useful from a technological, economical point of view, and with a specific target for the society. With the Life project, you have to forget the word research, and you have to make a project to solve environmental issues, environmental problems. Why I say you have to forget the research word? Because in theory, in the Life project, you have to make a project by using the outcome of other project. You have to apply something effective. But as a personal experience, this is not true for sure, because you have the opportunity, you have time, and you have space for making research also in the Life projects. I mean, I will show you later. But there are several connections between the two lines, I mean, between Life and the Horizon project, because there are common priority themes that are inserted in the codes, but they are part of the big European programs. And also there are similar administrative rules. If you are trying to apply a project, you have to consider that it is not an easy task. It's really complicated, and you need help. And the administrative part is one of the most important sections. You are a scientist, but consider that unless you have a really strong administration on your shoulder, probably you have to tackle most of this part of the work again. For the Life program, there are clear objectives that we can summarize. The first one, you have to protect the environment and to preserve the biodiversity. Therefore, you have all these projects to protect species, to protect the environment. In this part, you can have also the decarbonization projects to reducing greenhouse emission. Yes. Then there is an entire part dealing with the climate change, and the other part on the circular economy. Therefore, all these projects about, let's say, recycling, litter, plastic material, etc. In the life projects, they are, I like the life projects because they are really practical and you have to deal with outcomes that are useful for policy. So the project impact, and you will see that impact is quite different from results. The project impact should have an impact on the governance and environmental policy. You have to provide something which is useful from the policy. Let's say something that the final target could be, okay, I use the outcome of this project to produce this regulation or to produce this national legislation or decree that set these specific Natura 2000 sites. And in the LIFE project, the main task that you have is to apply something already functioning. I mean, the research is not the key point of a LIFE project. You can make research, but you have to start to something that already works. I mean, you cannot invent anything in theory. In practical terms, you have the first 1 or 2 years where you have the so-called priority actions or preliminary actions where you can make some additional research. After this, if the project is about, let's say, 5 years, you can apply this, your preliminary activity to the rest of the project. Okay, replicability is an important part of the LIFE project because you have to develop a project where your activities is replicable in other areas and in other nations, in other contexts, etc. Okay, leave this out. Therefore, the LIFE program has these 4 main specific topics that are natural biodiversity, circular economy, climate change, and energy transition. Yes, I would stress this part, do not support the basic research activity. This is not simple in theory. This is because when you write a LIFE project, you should avoid writing, I will make research on this, we will try to understand this by doing this, this, and this. No, you should avoid the wording, I would test this. You should use, rather than test, we should apply this or we should develop this, but try to avoid, when you write the proposal, any reference to the pure research, I mean. Then demonstrating and pilot an innovative solution. If you are able to, let's say, to develop a prototype is an added value for the project. I put here the K2M, which is the close to market, which is, let's say, a service that the European Commission offer to you if you have a prototype. Close to market initiative stimulates and helps you to translate your idea from the prototype until the market. Therefore, that's a really important part of this project. Try to develop something really practical, and you know what the TRL is. The TRL is the level that the new solution has from the, let's say, from the theory, the first prototypes until 9, which is the maximum level close to the market, let's say. And the life project, in the life project is really important, the replicability and the cooperation. You have to demonstrate to cooperate, to reuse the results of other EU projects, and to cooperate with other bodies. Okay, you can jump this part and we can simply slide down, but this is just to show you that there are several different common points between the Horizon and the LIFE project. The first one, the Horizon, tackled the project from a research point of view. The LIFE project tackled the same problem, but as an application. You have to use, let's say, the outcome of an Horizon project for the LIFE to solve a practical problem in the nature, to protect the nature, to protect the biodiversity, and so on. The same for all the other topic, the circular economy, pollution, etc., etc. So, coming back to the protected species, so to build a project on this, you have to have a clear problem at the beginning. You have to have a problem to solve, obviously, to base your project. In this case, the problem is the bycatch of protected species. Therefore, the first question is, your specific idea, that is try to solve the bycatch of protected species, is in the specific goal. You know, each year, Horizon, not always this year, but okay. Each year, the LIFE and the Horizon launch a call, and where there are specific topic. You have to decide, or you have to check if your idea fit with the topic of the call. Then you can have gaps in knowledge. As before, the estimate of bycatch, delayed mortality, you have some question to solve. Therefore, what are your needs? You have to improve the monitoring, and you can do this by survey or by developing, let's say, new technologies, remote electronic monitoring, or tagging. I know that some of you here are working with tagging, probably. You have the problem to identify the hotspot area. Therefore, you have the problem to identify the species distribution, effort. Therefore, when you put all together, you start a little bit building your project, starting from the problem, moving to the possible, let's say, issues or problem and solutions. And for the LIFE project, when you start making a new project, you have to think at the beginning of your partnership. In my point of view, so minimum 5 partners, otherwise the project is too small. Now the approach is to have very big projects with very big budget. And the duration, I just won a project of 6 years, but to be honest, I'm not so happy, because usually after 3 years, the partner will lose the attention to the project. Therefore, try to keep the project between, so minimum 3, maximum 5 years. But 5 years is really hard, because you have to take people one by one when you have a meeting, and it's difficult. I mean, the budget, and consider that while Horizon project usually financed your application 100%, in the LIFE project, the EU Commission usually covers the 60% of your budget. Therefore, you have to cover the 40% remaining with your own budget, which is usually the personal cost, more or less. I don't know if you are familiar with that, but if you are if you are working with a public body, such as the CNR, we usually cover this 40% with the personnel. The other, you have to report your expenses for 100%. These expenses are for, let's say, equipment, travel, durable goods, etc., and personnel cost. You have 100% of expenses, and on these expenses, the EU Commission give you 60%, and you have to cover the rest of the rest of 40% with your own budget, which is more or less always the personnel. So for a life project, there are some, let's say, simple tips. That is, not all the bodies can be an applicant for a life. You can be a company, a research institution, NGO, public administration, etc. All people registered in the EU. Then there are other, let's say, associated partner can be also non-EU partners from other countries, I mean, but they have to be registered in an EU register for countries that share the objective of life project, and the same for the Horizon. You have to not focus the project on research, but in a certain way you can do it. I remember again. You cannot use this budget for large infrastructures. Large infrastructures, I mean very large infrastructure, but I saw a project where you can finance something like 200,000 euros for a vessel. This is possible, I mean. And in the project, you have to consider support and monitoring. In a life project, you have a monitoring team set by the EU Commission, not you. This is a support for your project. This is a kind of control, sometimes quite heavy, because they push you and they press you, not every day, but why you didn't reach this deliverable in the due date? Why is a company that control you, but in some way is your help, because the monitoring team is your let's say body between you and the European Commission. Okay, your main reference is the European Commission, but usually you try to avoid making question to the European Commission for easy question. You don't want to bore the European Commission every day. That's why you have this monitoring team, which is paid by the European Commission. They follow the project from day one until the end, and they give you tips, advice, alert when you are making something strange. You can make a question to the monitoring team every day. You have to report to the monitoring team any communication that you have with the European Commission. So it's really important, but they cannot provide you any formal decision. If you have a very big question on the project, you cannot get an answer from the monitoring team. They are not allowed to provide decisions which are on the hand of the European Commission. So the big decisions are only from the European Commission. So I remember that in a project I had to cut one of the partners because they had very big problems, and I asked the monitoring team the procedures, okay, but the final decision to cut officially a partner is from the European Commission. So the very big decisions are from the European Commission, not from the monitoring team. Yes, remember that you decide to make a project, it takes time and money. Consider that if you want to apply for a Horizon or a Life project, consider at least 4-5 months of your time is 100% dedicated to the proposal. So it's a big stuff, I mean. And you are not able to deal with all the stuff of a proposal. Therefore, also in this phase, for instance, for the administrative part, you have to think about involving really experts or really expert companies on this part. Some company or some bodies usually can pay for the help of this specialized company. Can be an approach, or sometimes it is better to have on board the partners, some bodies or some company that are specialized in this, and you can allocate a budget for them. Yes, I already said this. Testing is not a part of, should be not a part of the project, in the Life project, I mean. Or you can just say that the tests are used to, let's say, to reach the final configuration of a solution that you are going to apply from year number 2. The first year is a preliminary year where you have to set everything, even your baseline, which is really important, but we'll see later. And then the monitoring. You have to have a clear part for the monitoring in your project. You have to monitor your results in a clear manner. You have to report numbers. I mean, you cannot be so much descriptive in this type of proposal. You have to report concrete numbers and concrete actions. You have to be really practical. You cannot be so narrative, even because you have a fixed number of pages, which is really short, I mean. And yes, you have to be really concrete and avoid philosophy, I mean. Okay, demonstration project. Okay, these are all the key priority sectors that are included in the Life, but agriculture and fisheries. Now it's really common to have project in ecosystem restoration, but so in this case, so consider that what they consider ecosystem restoration is not the pilot that you provide with the university. Okay, I rebuild these 10 square meters or Posidonia, and that's a good result. No, I saw a project from Sweden where they put new plants on, let's say, 10 hectares or a very big area. So restorations means something very big, not the pilot that you make in 10 square meters. I mean, then the other priorities are biodiversity protection, marine and coastal management, and governance, circular economy, water management. Okay, you can apply for all these key priority sectors, which are really important because when you see the call for the application, you have to read carefully because there are some topic, there are several points, and you have to be keen to take the right message from the call and to repeat the keywords that you find in the call in your proposal. You have to repeat in a keen manner the keywords that you find in the call in your proposal. It's a practical way to demonstrate, okay, I understood the call, what are the key points, and in my proposal, I tackled specifically these points. when you have a live projects, there are all these parts. The part A, which is common in the Horizon project, more or less is the same, is the administrative part, which is the boring part of the project because we have to report the details of each partners, the reference person, the CV of the partners, and etc. And the part B is your proposal. Let's say if you have an idea, you have to report in the part B, which is divided in three main parts, which is the excellence, the impact, and the quality of the implementation. The most important part is the impact. In the part B, the excellence, probably I have another slide. Okay. Yes, here the impact is the most important part because when you will have an evaluation of your proposal, there is a weight for the different section, the relevance, impact, the quality. As you can see, the impact usually weight more than the other part. Consider that you have to be able to write the impact part. It is not so easy. You have to be able to write specifically this part. Sometimes there are partners that involve people or companies specified in the impact part. They probably, let's say, are companies that usually are dealing with aerospace, but if you ask them to make an impact part for a fishery project, probably they can do this because they are writing exactly the impact part and they know what is needed in this part. So in the relevance part, you have to put the baseline, the objectives of your proposal, and the general methodology, general and specific methodology, let's say. In the impact, you have to report the ambition, credibility, sustainability, and replication. In the implementation is the classical, let's say, project, as you know, work packages, the stakeholders involved, the monitoring, etc. All this part goes in the implementation. Then there is a part about on the budget, consortium, etc., which is really time consuming because if you are the coordinator, you have to agree the budget partner by partner according to the activity that this specific partner should do. And that's a political talk with some partners. And then there are all the other sections about the ethics and gender balance. Not here, probably, but in the Horizon, they request, how do they call the gender plan or something like that. Probably later on, I will have this. You have to demonstrate that your administration has a clear gender plan for equity between gender. It's really important because it's a mandatory document for the proposal. Okay. For the relevance, really important is the baseline. In your project, at the really beginning, you have to provide your baseline in numbers. You cannot describe your problem by saying, yes, there is a problem of bycatch of turtles in Italy with probably, no. You have to say, in Italy, according to this paper, this and this, the amount of turtles caught are these, with this gear in this specific area. The numbers of that are these. So the baseline, when you are speaking about baseline, you have to report numbers, okay? And you have to take these for your fields of activity. I mean, I'm speaking here of bycatch, etc. But you have to imagine this for your activity. You have to show a logic, a clear logic on what you are doing, from the problem to the objective, to the actions that you are going to do, and to the results. The methodology, you cannot simply say, I'm going to make this, this, and this. No, you have to be really specific. I will apply this, and this. This device to reduce this bycatch, this device which is made like this, with this dimension, etc., etc. Methodology should be really precise. And then also the synergy and so I put here that it's useful to have a checklist for each section. One question could be a non-expert, by reading your relevance part, can describe the project in just one sentence. The second is the baseline are numbers or only narrative. Your objectives are clearly measurable. When I mean measurable in the life project, I mean that you have to report numbers. Mandatory life requests for KPI, key performance indicators, that are numbers. I'll make you an example. You have to report there are tables that you have to fill in the platform. The procedure, you write a project, but the procedure is there is a platform to insert everything, I mean, and you have to insert information like how many kilometers of coast your project will affect, how many hectares. In the sea environment is not so easy, and sometimes you provide a number which is taken from a bag, let's say, because when we are speaking about a sea surface and you want to deal with a bycatch of dolphins, the numbers are numbers. But sometimes this is mainly because life projects were born on land. Let's say if you want to count the deers in an area, you can make a monitoring, you know how many deers are in these mountains, and how many hectares, etc. And the same approach are applied for the sea environment. Okay. So the relevance, you have to be sure that your part, relevance is a kind of introduction where you put the main problems, and you have to demonstrate that this specific, your specific objective are exactly in the objective of the life program and on the topic of the call. Quindi, sorry. The project is aligned with the specific priorities. The logic, I told you before, and the project delivers co-benefit and promotes synergy with other project and policy areas. So in the life project, you have to build something which is useful not only for you or for your project, but also for other stakeholders, and also for the policy. That's why you have to report clearly in your proposal, okay, my project focus on this specific objective of the life program, of the, let's say, common fishery policy. It tackles these needs of this regulation, it tackles, etc., etc. So you have to clearly report the link between your objectives, your final outcomes, and the policy. That can be several policy, marine strategy framework directive, for instance, etc. So the impact, when you write this part, you have to answer 4 main questions: the ambition, credibility, sustainability, and the catalytic potential. Ambition, what change your project will produce compared to the state of art. So if you are applying for a life project, you have to demonstrate that you are producing producing something practically which is completely new from the previous situation, which is the ambition part. The credibility is the impact that you have on the long term. I mean, impact is something different from the results. It is something that you will have from your project and in the future. That's why in the life project you have to also provide an afterlife program. It's mandatory. You have to provide in your proposal also that you in the project you are able to produce an afterlife project with these resources, this and this. It's a formal document that you have to produce, and you have to write in the proposal that we are going to apply. We are going to produce the afterlife program in this way. So for the checklist, the KPIs is mandatory. You will see that without the KPIs, you cannot go ahead with the proposal. Okay, I don't want to lose too much time on this, but okay. So ambition and credibility, okay, we did this during and after the project. Sustainability of the project results after and the end of, usually they say within 5 years after the end of the project. You have to provide a program of this. This is the sustainability. The replicability, you have to demonstrate that your actions are potentially replicable in other areas, and if possible, you should say, we will replicate these actions in this and this country, or in this and this area, in other areas, other than the areas already inserted in the project. Okay. So the quality of the implementation, here you have to provide the work plan, as you probably know from other types of project, which is the work package, tasks, actions, etc. You have to demonstrate that these are logically linked one to the other. Deliverables and milestone, you have to report the deliverables and milestones here that are different. You know the difference between deliverable and milestones. Deliverables is something that you have to deliver as a product, okay? It can be, let's say, a prototype. It can be, I don't know, the production of a sorting grid in a bottom trolley. Milestones are the key point of the project. Can be, okay, the milestone in my project is at the end of 2027, I will finish the sea trials with the fishermen. This is a milestone. The third part is the reports. Reports are not deliverable, not milestone. Because sometimes there is a bit confusion on this. Deliverables are not report. There is a special section for reports. In this part, you have to demonstrate which type of stakeholders you are dealing with and which type of stakeholders you are involving. The most practical ways is to try to involve some stakeholders as partners of the project. And in the fishery sector, the easy way is to involve association or cooperatives, etc. Impact monitoring and reporting, the KPIs, key performance indicator, I repeat, and the reports. Usually, it depends on how long is the project, but usually in 5 years project you have at least 2 midterm reports, and one final report. In the past, I remember the monitoring team wanted 1 month, 1 report for each month of activity. It was a mess. And the last part is the communication, dissemination, and visibility. For the life project, this part is really important. And it's a bit different because communication is something that you do for the general public, inform the general public on the project, TV program, radio, etc. Dissemination is more specifically for, let's say, key stakeholders. You are to disseminate the results of your project to key stakeholders or to other scientists that can do the same in other areas. So dissemination is something specific. I just checked, see the checklist, but okay. Yes, I spoke about that. And consider that in every material that you produce for your project, in the life project, you have to specifically report the financial contribution from the life project. This is extremely important because you risk that some expenses cannot be recognized by the EU Commission. You have to clearly report in every single material that you produce the financial contribution of the EU. And when you produce material and you put the logo of your company, that's okay. The logo, the project logo is okay. You have to put the EU flag. If it's a Natura 2000 project, you have to put the Natura 2000 flag. But if you put another logo of something that it is not related to the project, let's say, I remember in one case, there was a financial contribution from an energy company. The EU Commission take this material and, okay, we do not recognize this expensive because the risk is the double financing for the same thing. You have to demonstrate in the budget that you are buying this PC specifically for the project and specifically and solely with the EU budget. If you put other logos, etc., the risk is to have a double financing and the EU Commission cut the expense. So the quality, you have to demonstrate the clarity, coherence, and other feasibility of your plan. You have to demonstrate, you have to clearly report the geographical focus of your project. Report the environmental impact, report the environmental stakeholders, and to insert the measures that you include for communication and dissemination. Also here, it is better to have or to report in the proposal that you will produce a communication plan at the beginning of the project. Communication plan where you report in detail the project will be communicated to the general public through, let's say, social network in this way. You have to be really precise. You cannot say simply, I will put the project news in Facebook. No, you have to be really precise and you have to produce a communication plan. There are companies specialized in that and it is not, let's say, a generic plan. You have to be really specific on that. Then the last part is about the resources. As you can see, each part I put 0-20 points because when you will have an evaluation, each part will have a specific rank and a specific evaluation, I mean. The composition of the project team is really important because you have to insert partners that demonstrate the multi-specificity, the multitasking of your project. You have to report partners, possibly stakeholders also, to demonstrate that your project is a bottom-up project, starting with the real stakeholders. Your budget is adequate for what you are doing. So it's a really tricky point because, for instance, one criticism usually is okay, you put too many budget for the personnel cost. This is always the same, and therefore you have to justify every single expenses that you make, and then you cannot be generic also in this part, but you have to say, I will buy 10 passive nets for doing this, and this. At the end of the project, if you buy 20 nets, they say, well, okay, in the proposal you reported 10. Why you bought 20 nets? And you have to justify every single expenses. Budget transparency. You know, most of you are working with the public administration, and you know there are some really precise procedures, and you have to report this. At the very beginning of the project, they ask your procedures, your rules to make to buy something. I mean, okay, another part that could be stupid, but you have to report is about the environmental footprint. Then you have to write a section where you say we try to avoid printing material in papers to avoid the greenhouse emission, blah blah blah. There is a way to write this part, but it's a kind of checklist, but you have to be sure that you include in the proposal every single part that can provide you a point. Finally, the value for money, which is, okay, I'm doing these activities, which is the most economic that is possible. I mean, okay, I have to run. Let's see. Yes, these are, I put here some tips. I don't want to go in detail because it's late, but so there are specific tips for writing a proposal. Avoid repetition. Sometimes use a scheme or images to summarize something that requests 2 pages. So you can summarize in a figure or in a table. Even because the proposal should be something in movement. I mean, otherwise the reviewer can be bored by reading 45 or 100 pages like this. Okay, common mistakes, too many objectives, lack of important details, does not provide sufficient qualitative and quantitative information, do not describe the results of previous research. You have to base the project on previous research. Other mistakes can be the number of P and actions too big. There is not a logical link between all the actions and the results, objective actions and results. Do not include the concrete actions. If you write a project which is just theory, okay, it is not a good approach. Yes, this is a tip. If you decide to be the coordinator of a project, you have to consider that 99% you have to do everything by yourself, because writing report, probably nobody of the consortium will read your report. It's difficult to be the coordinator because you have to deal with several different stuff. Okay. Yes, at the very beginning of the project, you have to set a consortium agreement where you report all the relationship between the partners, who is responsible for doing what, the budget, etc., the property of results, the sensitive issue. Okay. Okay, I report several different slides on this, but sometimes it is quite boring. I want to jump to the last part of this. You have to report also the problem, the possible problem. You have to identify the possible gaps that you can face in a project and the possible mitigation measures, such as one could be lack of cooperation by fishers that will hamper activity at sea. This could be a problem, obviously. A solution could be involving fishermen association to provide this, and this. You have to provide the problem and the possible solution. Okay. This is about the budget. It's quite long, but it doesn't matter. I want to jump to the last part where you have the project strategy. This is the platform, the common platform that you have, where you have to insert your proposal. Is in Italian about, okay? This is the part B. These are all the annexes that you have to compile in your proposal. This is the part A with all the partners, associated partners, etc. Okay, this is the platform. You have to play with it. I cannot explain right now, but you have to play and lose time on this. The part A is the general information, part B is the proposal. Oh, and this is the general, let's say the template, the word template for a live proposal, where you have the relevance and all the other chapters that you have to compile, the background and general project, the specific objective, concept and methodology, etc., etc. The impact, the test, the ambition, credibility, sustainability, and all the part that we saw before. All you have to compile all these single chapter, implementation, and so on. And there is a part just for the budget. So dealing with the horizon, I don't want to do everything, but horizon is specific for research. You have 3 pillars, but okay, you have to focus on this. Each pillar is financing something different, but I want to go to the project. There are different projects, but probably you are most interested in the RIA, the research and innovation actions. So usually the project that we did are always focused on this. Which are the partner eligible for the application? As you can see here, you have a limit of 45 pages, which is really short. Remember that when you write an Horizon project, you will spend, let's say, 1 month to decrease the previous project. You will write a project for 4 months, and you have to dedicate 1 month to decrease the text, really, because it's really difficult to do this. This is exactly the same as the life project, the consortium composition, and you have to have this one. I told you before, the gender equality plan. Who is eligible? EU countries, but also non-EU countries. Associated country, this is something different, but it's not a matter here. I just want to focus on the key points. Okay. Here you can see that for research and innovation action, the funding rate is 100%. In the LIFE project, you saw 60%. Therefore, this type of project is much better, but is even challenging because there are several applications usually. The part A is the administrative one, and the part B is the proposal. So you have to apply in the application the title and the acronym. The part A is administrative, and the part B, which is 45 pages, I told you before. The three parts that are important in this section are the excellence, impact, and the implementation, like the horizon, like the life, more or less. And each one imply a different evaluation. The impact is impact is something different from the result. The result of a project is the result that you achieve in your project, the numbers that you provide, etc., etc. Impact is the long-term outcome that you are going to reach with your project. Therefore, the impact is something stronger than simply the result. Excellence, impact, and implementation. In the excellence, you have to report a clear objective and also ambitious, because you cannot apply for an horizon to make the state of art. You have to apply for in an horizon to provide something really new. This is the challenge of the horizon. You have to clearly identify in the excellence part the state of art and what you are going to change. You have to report a sound methodology. This is quite similar to the life, this part. And also the interdisciplinarity of your project. Therefore, the key point is to provide the right consortium that cover all different responsibility and all the different competencies in the project. The impact, you have to demonstrate what are the outcome and the benefit for the key target group of the project. You have to identify for which target group you are producing this project, a clear pathway to the impact. Also here, dissemination, communication, etc. The implementation, as we saw before, is the work plan, the research, the consortium quality, etc., which is a kind of CV. For the reviewer, what good looks like is short and a clear storyline, not too really complicated, the narrative section. No, you have to report the problem, the methodology, your objective and outcome, and how you are going to reach this. You have to use a consistent terminology. You cannot provide several different wording for explaining the same thing. Otherwise, the reviewers sometimes are not really specialized in your specific fields of activity. Therefore, you should try to avoid misunderstanding. Try to be consistent in terminology. You can use figure and tables to shorten the test and to make everything clear. And the issue are more or less the same that the ones that I showed you before for the life project. Okay, evaluation project of the project. Leave it. We can jump. I mean. Yes. When you write the project, these are the key principles. To make a project that fit in the work program topic, which is ambitious, you have to go beyond the state of art. You have to propose something really new. Quality work plan, okay. Open science. When you write the proposal, you have to make a section where you clearly state that the results of your project will be open science. And you have to find a way to link your project to international database, etc., etc. The principle is the fair, findable, accessible, interpretable, and usable. Remember this word. Gender dimension, I said before. This is the excellence part, the narrative line, your need, your idea, method, and proof. Okay. Up. We have to run. Impact. Okay, here I reported the difference between the results and the impact. Results, output, demonstrator, data and tools, outcome, adoption, capability and behavioral change, impact. What is the social, scientific and economic impact of your project? Okay. I'm sorry, but what is an impact pathway? From the project results to communication dissemination, outcome, and scientific economic impact, as we saw here. Okay, in this presentation, it's quite long, but I put several different tips on how to write a project proposal. But when you speak about the impact, you have to have clear in mind that your impact are scientific. Therefore, the stakeholders are other scientists. Societal impact, what are the benefits for the social, for the society, and the economic impact. Okay, probably you are tired, me too. So this morning, I realized that I have to set some homework for you, really. I can give you right now, or I have time within the week. No, I mean, I write something, but I want to reduce because I realize that probably is too much for you right now. But my idea is, okay, I provide you with a general overview of the LIFE projects and Horizon project. I provide you also with, for instance, here you can find in the presentation, probably I will cut a bit this and I will try to leave this part as before. You saw before for the LIFE project. Also here there is a general template for the Horizon where you have to compile the different sections. But what I want you do is something like this. So starting from this general overview, ok. Manuele mia figlia. But I will reduce this, but what I want you to do is taking this template for LIFE project, etc. As a reference, try to put in a schematic way here a kind of project that you have in mind. Trying to, I don't want you to spend days in this, but try to fix in this schematic way the idea that you have for a project, LIFE or Horizon project. I don't want to to describe everything, etc. It's just a sentence is enough to describe what are the problem that you want to tackle, what's your approach, etc., etc. It's too hard for you or feasible? I will keep it as simple as possible, don't worry. And it is just to see if you have ideas and if you have an idea how you want to realize this idea according to the life or horizon scheme, I mean. Is baseball too hard? No. Leave this out from me now. No. I want you to make this in a schematic way. Okay. So I will send you, I will reduce the text and okay. I send to you.
Yeah.
Greta.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm sorry I had to run, but probably the next lesson will be only dedicated to the project, how to write a project. It's really complicated, but so it's a good result when you win a project and it's nice. So probably start to be partner of a project, but writing a project is another story. Probably you have to start with some experts, etc. But so at a certain point of your career, probably you have to be the one that apply for the project. Sorry if I was so boring. I'm also bored too. I'm bored to hear my voice and okay. See you the next lesson.